Hey, legal besties, and welcome to Ladies in Law. Today we have an incredibly special guest. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about yourself.
Of course. Hi, my name is Camila. I'm a first generation Latina law student. I'm also a content creator, small business owner, and about to graduate law school in May. So it's just even crazy to say out loud, but so excited to be
We're
here.
so excited to have you. You are our very first law student on the podcast, which is so exciting.
I'm so excited. No, I feel honored,
No, the
truly.
honor is all ours. Truly, I think that law school is just such a hard chapter, and it can be a chapter that feels really isolating. And so I think having you on to just kind of talk about your experience and the work that you are doing in the community to make the profession of law more accessible is just so important. And so I am just so glad that you're here.
No, I'm so excited. And I love that you opened the space up for a law student. I think a lot of the times where college students or high schoolers are looking for kind of advice and representation, it's hard to, see kind of somebody who's already been successful and not in the process of getting there. So I'm excited to have this space to share my story and my journey.
Yes, yeah, your story and your journey is incredible. So just like kind of just to give some background on how I even found you. I was on Instagram and you popped up on my for you kind of suggested followers. And so I looked at your page and it's incredible. Like I am just so in awe of you. And so I want to kind of dive into all the aspects of what your social media is being used as, the kind of work you are doing within your community also. But first, let's talk about your journey to the law. So what was your journey like to today?
Okay, so I'm gonna try to keep this short because it was a long, long
I get
journey.
it.
But I was born in Mexico, and I came to the U.S. with my family at age 7, and so coming to a different country, and I know I was young, but I noticed it took a hit on my confidence academically, and I just always was behind on everything. And so getting into high school, I still kind of felt that, you know, that imposter syndrome, I guess, and just didn't ever feel like I fit in. I was always taken out of class, and so when I got to high school, I really told myself that school was just not for me. It wasn't the way that I thought and the way that I did things. I was like, it just doesn't align with me. And so when I was in high school, I pretty much failed out and I got kicked out. And they told me, if you want to graduate with us, you could stay, but you just won't get your diploma. And so they gave me the opportunity to go to continuation school. And I did, and I got my credits back up, then went back to regular high school. And at this point, I remember seeing all my friends getting accepted to 4 years. And I just remember this feeling of, wow, I really messed everything up. Like, I no longer have a future, sort of. And I think that's when it hit me. And it hit me that I did want an education. And I went to community college, and that was the best thing that I ever did. I know there's a little bit of controversy when it comes to community college, but I truly think it was the best decision for me. And I went through it and I loved it because I was able to pick the classes that I enjoyed. And I think early on I couldn't adjust to these are the classes that you need to take, and even though they don't really matter to you. So when I started doing that, I really fell in love with political science, criminal justice, and so I decided to transfer out, and I moved from Northern California to Southern California to go to SDSU. And I did that, and I knew I wanted to go to law school. So I saw the LSAT process and I kind of searched it up. I had no idea what it even entailed. I just kind of Googled what is the LSAT, and and I saw the price to the LSAT courses, and I was just scared. And once I started studying for it, I realized that I was so behind on my English, and I realized that I was so behind on just basic knowledge of life when it came to academia. So I felt like I was reteaching myself English as I was studying for the LSAT. And so what I thought would be a 2 month process ended up being a whole year. And I obviously used my financial aid that the school provided, and it was very hard. But once I got into law school, I felt like there was a lot of people like me and in my community who had similar backgrounds, and there wasn't anybody on social media that I ever kind of related to, or anybody or any mentors, college counselors. So I decided to start sharing my journey online, and uh, first year of law school, which was very scary, but I really felt like the reward outweighed the risk of that, because I just realized how many students came and talked to me and told me that I kind of inspired them to go to law school. So
That's incredible. You're incredible. I think just like interwoven in everything you said is just such strength and resilience. And I think that a big part of my gripe with just like the school system as a whole is that it is built for like one size fits all. And education should not be one size fits all, because everyone comes from
right,
different backgrounds, everyone comes from a different environment. It's like you wouldn't ask a monkey and a fish to both climb a tree and expect the exact same result. I think that there's a lot more work that can be done within the education system to just make it more accessible. And I think that, I mean, studying for the LSAT is hard, like objectively incredibly difficult, just alone, let alone having to take the time to reteach yourself English. And not even, I mean, English is such a hard language in general, let alone having to learn it with new legal jargon and in a different
right,
kind of like critically thinking that you might not have had to do to date. And I mean, so
right.
you're in your last year of law school. I know for me,
Yes, I
being in law school, I was like, this is different than any schooling I've ever had. So it's also kind of like reteaching yourself how to be a student, because it's just like the studying is different, the critically thinking is different, everything is different. So it's like a whole new system again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's not just different, but it's also lonely, because I think everybody's journey in law school is so different, and everybody learns so differently. And if you don't have somebody who went to law school that you can kind of go
Mm-hmm.
to, it's terrifying, because you have one final grade at the end, and they tell you like, oh, if you don't get X amount of GPA, you'll get kicked out. So during the semester, you're like trying to survive and also trying to study, but then you're like, am I doing this right? Like, how do I know I'm doing this right? So it was very difficult. And it's funny about like the relearning English, or even like the legal jargon. But I remember my first, I think it was orientation for 1L. I was in a group of students, and we were just talking about, I don't know, something, and the word nepotism came up. And I had never heard about nepotism until that day. And I was trying to keep up with the conversation, but I was like, oh my God, I feel like if they ask me something, I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
know. And I remember just Googling it really quickly, and I was like, what is nepotism? But I feel like that has been my experience, and still up until today, I still struggle with a lot of basic things. But I feel like at the end of the day, it is resilience, and it is the mindset of growth rather than fear that truly is what has led me to be now about to graduate in May.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God, I'm so excited for you. That is just, God,
Thank
it's such an
you.
amazing, amazing feeling. You are very close to the finish line for law
Yeah,
school, and
it's
then you're going to have
scary.
your JD, and that is just, no one can take that away from you. And like, you earned it. Blood, sweat, tears, sleepless nights, all of it. Like, you have worked very intentionally hard to be here, and no one can take that away
Yeah,
from you ever. And I'm very
right,
proud of you.
right. Thank you. I
Yeah,
really
of
appreciate that a
course.
lot.
Like, you are what this profession needs. And I think what is so, like, even just what you're talking about when it comes to law school, I think like you want so badly for it to be a collaborative atmosphere, but there's a lot of competition just riddled in it. You are literally like ranked among your class. And so you want to be able to study with them, but then also like you are being ranked against them. And so that is difficult because you don't know anyone's motives ever. And so that is kind of isolating in and of itself. And you find the people you trust and all of that, which is important. And also there's just like this weird level where it's competitive and isolating. And then when your family and your friends outside of just like law school don't always understand what law school entails. And so that is a lot
Right.
to juggle too.
Right. And I think with this profession, I'm sure you can agree, Michaela, but it's a lot of boundary
Mm.
setting. And I'm sure, once you become a lawyer, it's even more. But I think at the beginning it was really hard to set boundaries with my fellow
Mhm.
classmates of, saying I'm not sharing grades or obviously being collaborative, like you said, sharing outlines and stuff like that. But when it came to specific personal stuff, I felt like it was, I need to keep this. I don't want to know your grades and I don't want you to know mine, just because at the end of the day somebody is here leaving upset
Yes.
and it's not productive. So I think I'm curious how that's gonna kind of follow me through the career, and just I don't know what kind of boundaries I have to also
Yeah.
set um, as a lawyer.
Yeah. God, I could not have put that better. Boundary setting is huge. So my
Mm-hmm.
now husband and I met in law school. And that was like one of the very first boundaries we set was like, I do not want to talk about grades. I don't want to compare, well, I studied more or you studied more. How did that? I don't want to do that. I don't, even after tests, I was like, I don't want us to talk about what you put for answers or things because I don't want to sit here now thinking, like, damn it, I missed that one. Like, I need to be able to be done. And so setting those boundaries is huge. And I think there's just so much judgment too, from classmates when it comes to grades. And I do not believe that A students are the smartest. Like, that's just not, I don't agree with that. I think application matters so much more. I think grades really aren't, if you can study great, awesome, but like how are you going to be when a client comes to you and is crying and is hurt and through their healing journey, because like that is what matters more to me than like your grade in law school. And so I just think that I always wanted to eliminate that, or like anyone making any kind of perception or judgment based off of anything, because it doesn't matter to me. And it might matter to other people, and you know what? That is okay. That is their prerogative, but it wasn't something that I ever wanted to be judged for.
Right. No, I love that, and that's great. And I think also when I started, what helped me a lot, kind of build those boundaries, because at first I didn't know how
Mhm.
to, but instead of focusing a little bit, on the grades and what grade am I going to get in this, I started reaching out to attorneys, and I started meeting with attorneys, and I started getting coffee with them, and I was like, if I just get information from them, people who are already successful, who have already done this process, and if I could get the most information I can from them, then I'll apply it here. And a big thing that I learned while doing that is a lot of the successful attorneys, they were not straight A students. They were not the typical a shark like
Mhm.
law student. So I kind of started just realizing that it was more of do what you can, do as much as you can, but don't burn yourself out, and focus on your strengths. And for me, that was a lot of it was networking and showing my personality that way, and creating content, and yeah. So I started focusing more on my strengths rather than my weaknesses, and I felt like that helped me put the boundaries up, so I didn't focus on the
Yeah.
weaknesses.
I think what's really important too in what you're saying is like the information gathering. And I think that a lot of people don't do that. I think a lot of the time, well, especially in law school, I just feel like their examples are big law. It's big law, it's the top of the class, it's how many opportunities the top ranked, students get. And I just never wanted to fall for that. But then also, when that's like the rhetoric that you hear all the time, it's hard not to have that be a part of your subconscious. And so I want to ask
Right.
you, just because I think it's really hard. I mean, when I was a law student, I was very intimidated by people who were already in the legal field. And I never wanted to sound dumb or look dumb or ask questions where they're like, oh, you don't know that yet. And I passed a lot of judgment on myself of like where I thought I should be. And I think I cut myself short from a lot of just different experiences because of that. And so something that I see in you is that like you are a go-getter. You get that information. Have you always been like that? Like, is that something that's like innate in you? Where do you get that from?
Um, that's a good question. Yes, I think, okay, so I think because early on I was not an academic person at all, I had to be very resourceful in how I succeeded in things. I could, I never really depended on that. I more depended on what other opportunities are there. Let me get a second opinion. And a lot of the times the second opinions were different than the first. So I think I quickly realized that early on because I didn't just solely, stick my head in the
Hmm.
books. I was kind of like, be resourceful. And so I think because of that, that allowed me to apply it now in law school and kind of use a different, I guess,
Hmm.
strategy than I feel like most. And I've mentioned it on my social media, but a lot of, most of my jobs I haven't had to give them a resume or haven't had to give them a transcript because I sort of just go out of my way to make my presence shown, or I reach out, or I go get coffee and I keep up with them. So I think it's uh, having an open mind to different ways of succeeding is kind of how you know, early on taught myself.
Yeah, I think that is incredible. And I think that that's on like adapting and and meeting yourself where you're at and also pushing yourself and wanting more. And I think
Mm-hmm.
what's huge in that too is like you are allowing for people to see you as you for like the whole
Mm-hmm.
being, not just Camila the student or Camila the almost attorney. You're letting people see you for you and like you as a whole. And I think that that matters so much more. And I think, like, yeah, can we send a resume and hope to get a job based off of that? Sure. And also, is that going to be the best fit for you? Like, how are you going to know that if like you aren't putting you holistically forward? And I think we're always going to put our best foot forward when we're interviewing and doing these kinds of things. And also, if we want to find a place that wholly aligns with us and our viewpoints and our beliefs, then like be you from day one. It's like finding a
Yeah,
partner
I
too,
agree.
like it's you want to be you.
Yeah, right. And I, in law school I realized that like not a lot of people are being them. And I get it because it's kind of like this pressure put on us and you don't want to see yourself vulnerable or weak or let anyone see you vulnerable or weak. But I think those are the moments of strength, and I think those are the moments where people are willing to be helpful and you inspire others. And I think the right opportunities find you when you truly are authentic to yourself. And I've seen that time and time again. And I've seen the opposite where I have kind of followed an opportunity because it's shiny, shiny. But I quickly realized following an opportunity that didn't align with me, how detrimental that was to me and my mental health. And so I think, following your authentic self genuinely takes you and doors open up for you when you're that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that too, sometimes that's hard to fully like believe in law school because I do think that there is a mold and there are these rules and these guidelines and what has worked in the past and we think we need to just continue that and be that. And I think you're doing a great job of not losing yourself in all of that. And I think even just like putting yourself out there on social media. I think that the field of law is a lot of just like bravado and ego and like I'm the best, like no one has ever done it as good as me, kind of like showboatiness, for lack of a better word. And something that I really resonated with your page was your vulnerability in just being real and not talking about always being the top of the class, but showing that, like, no, like if you look like me, if you have an experience like me, like this can be your reality too. And so your page is just like very focused on like representation, which is huge, and also education, where you have these educational pieces where you talk about how to apply for loans, how to apply for law school, just kind of how to make the legal field more accessible, which I think is huge. Can you talk a little bit about why those were some of the areas that you really wanted to focus your page and the work that you're doing on?
Yeah, of course. Um like I mentioned earlier, when I first applied to law school, I've never experienced this type of loneliness and in wanting something so bad, but being like, I don't think I can, and I don't think there's anything for me that helps me do this. And so when I finally did it and I applied and I got in, I felt like I had this duty to sort of not pay it forward, but really say like if I could do it, knowing my history in academia, absolutely anybody could do it, especially my community and my Latino people. I really felt like I grew up in Watsonville, so Watsonville is a majority immigrant population, Latinos, and so I know their stories and I know kind of how they grew up and their academia, so I had them in the back of my head. And sort of when I started social media and sharing my story, I did not expect the amount of people that were gonna reach out to me and the amount of people who emailed me. And so with that in mind, that's why I decided to start Latinas Exec, which is now my business, starting off with my business partner Vanessa. And yeah, we're just focusing on providing resources and again different ways on how to succeed to get into law school, whether it's not this $1,000 program. There's this $50 book on Amazon that helps you self-study. And so yeah, just being that resource for students that I wish I had early on to make my life less scary and lonely kind of going into the process.
Yes, representation matters. It really, really does. And I think that what you are doing is incredible because Latina women are so incredibly underrepresented in the US legal profession. I mean, I think it's literally around 2 to 3% of all attorneys are Latina women, even though 1/5 of the US female population is Latina women. And that is insane and heartbreaking. And the work that you are doing on representation, on inclusivity, on just like shedding light on that intersectionality of being a woman and being Latina, and how there's not enough in this profession that so badly needs you.
Right. No, I agree. And like you said, the math doesn't add up when it comes to the population versus how many Latina lawyers there are. And so I think that sharing my story and sharing my journey just allows them to resonate with me and for them to see that it is possible, because when you see the math, you're like, okay, what's the problem? Like, it's clearly not the amount of people there are, it's clearly the resources and how the system is created and how it weeds out, people of color, women, people who don't have a lot of money. So I'm trying to kind of create ways that knocks that out and helps them, get to this profession, because like you said, there's a huge need right now, especially. So yeah, I think the more representation there is, the better country it'll be.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. Yeah, full stop. Like, yes. And I think that is like, I mean, I have many gripes with like the bar and all of that kind of stuff in terms of like, I think there's a lot of gatekeeping in the legal profession. And I think, I mean, if we had to practice law the way that you have to take the bar exam, like you would not be a good attorney. You just wouldn't be. Like that, it's not. I could go on a whole tangent about that. But I just feel like what you are doing is important, because I think that when it comes to like, it's not inexpensive. Prep courses, expensive. Having to have a laptop to do the prep courses a lot of the time, expensive. All of these things that start where it's like, well, how can I do this if I don't have enough funds for X? And what if I don't pass the first time? Then that means I need to pay for all of this twice. Like, there are so many things that we can talk ourselves out of. And I think what you are doing in shining a light on resources, on a book you can get on Amazon instead of the $3,000 preparatory course, is huge. And like, you're also this example of like, these are the things that I've used. These are the things I've heard other people use. Like, I think you posted a story where you were like putting different preparatory courses, and even if you hadn't taken it, you're like, I have heard good things about this, where it's like, these are your options. And I think that so often we don't know that there are options because only the one thing is talked about.
Right. Like you said, it's gate kept. Even while I'm in law school, I realize that it, and don't get me wrong, law school is very
Yeah.
hard. But the hard is mental, and it's not so much
Hmm.
academically hard. I mean, it is, but
I
it's
get you.
also not as much as people
Yeah.
make it. And so I feel like people make things harder than they need to be, and they make it seem harder because when you make it seem harder, you seem
Mhm.
smarter. And it's this, like you said, egotistic career and field. So I think I also want to kind of shine light and like it is hard, but look, this is what I have done. These are the courses you need to take. There's office hours. And so just kind of sharing options and ways, and because like you said, it's gate kept. So I think within law school and with the prep stuff, I just kind of try and share as much as I can from my experience and from others' experience that, I can, so that they 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 see avenues and they don't see just one way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
And can you expand a little bit more on your Latinas exec? So, what are the kinds of things that you guys are doing with that?
Yeah, so we started it last year, and um, we are doing free resources. So we add kind of everything that you mentioned that I added on my story. And that's LSAT prep courses. We add scholarships. We have law firms reach out to us and tell us, hey, we have this scholarship. So we always add those in there. We also have free office hours every month where they could come in and just ask questions. And we just added services to help them for like law school application, whether that's resume, personal statement, and just kind of the one-on-one coaching with that. And I think we decided to do that because we understand their story. And at least for me, when I started applying, anytime that I would meet with somebody who I had to kind of show them my personal statement, they did not understand what I was trying
Mhm.
to show. And so just having someone that understands your background, and maybe understands that, maybe English isn't your second language, is less intimidating, and it makes one one step less hard.
Yeah. Well, because there's a very big difference between someone being like, I can only imagine what that felt like, versus someone being like, I intrinsically understand where you are coming from and what that must have felt like. And both are, like one is not it's just you're coming from a different perspective. You're coming from a shared perspective. You're coming from this place of um you don't have to explain. I get it. And I think that there's a lot of emotional energy in trying to get someone to understand where you're coming from or trying to paint a picture. And not everyone has empathy, and not everyone is going to understand the the strength it took to get through that, and the intentionality and the fight to get through that, and choosing to. And I think that the fact that you and your co-founder can sit and be like, we understand, and you don't have to do the emotional labor of catching us up, is huge and needed, and I'm sure very appreciated.
Right. Yeah, no, I genuinely am excited to begin this and help students more on a one-on-one basis to help them into law school, because it is more of I understand and I get you, and let's see how we can make your story shine in a law school application
Yes.
process.
Oh my gosh, you're doing so great. I'm just so proud of like all you've been able to do in this time. I mean, like school in and of itself is just very time consuming, energy consuming, all encompassing. And so the fact that you are also spending what very little free time you get during that time helping other people speaks a lot to you and who you are, and why I am so excited for you to join this profession.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. And same goes to you, honestly. I really love that you're creating this space for women and for, minorities to kind of come and share their story, and also, share resources and all of that, because I know you don't have a lot of time either.
I appreciate you, and I just think that your voice deserves to be heard because you have incredible things to say. And I kind of want to leave off on one last question. If you could give little you one piece of advice, what would you tell her?
I think it would be to take everyone's advice with a grain of salt, and to trust her gut and continue doing what's right for her.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And like, look where your gut and your own instinct has gotten you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of outside noise when it comes to this profession, this career, or even, from your community kind of judging the amount of money that you're spending to get here. So I think at the end of the day, it's your life and nobody else gets to live it but you. So yeah, just trusting that has gotten me here
Yeah.
today.
And it's a great life that you are leading, and I'm so excited to just see where you go in this profession. And I wish you so much luck in graduating and taking the bar and all of the things to come. You are an incredible person. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Michaela. Thank you so much. I really
Yes,
appreciate it. You as
of
well.
course. And then can you just tell us your social media pages so anyone who wants to reach out to you can find you?
Yeah, so my TikTok is Camila Milanes and my Instagram is Cami's Gaze. And I do have a YouTube channel, which I'm not posting so frequently on there, but
There's
it
time.
is Camila Milanes as well.
I think that there's going to be a lot of people that want to pick your brain or just say thank you for the work you're doing. So I want them to be able to find you.
Thank you. I really
Of
appreciate it.
course. And thank you all for listening. Until next time.